Welcome to the Zayari Wellness Podcast, where we learn about other people's journeys. Regardless of age, race, religion, or status, we're all just human and have one thing in common: the ups and downs of life. Join me in welcoming our special guest, Stacie, as we explore nutrition and mental health.
Hello, I'm Stacie Ellis. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I have my own private practice and I'm also the dietitian at the University of Texas at Arlington. I specialize in weight management, eating disorders, and sports nutrition. And I provide consultations for individuals and speaking engagements for them.
Okay, well, thank you, Stacie, for definitely coming to this podcast to raise awareness about how nutrition can affect our health. So, could you briefly just tell the audience about how nutrition specifically affects our health and our wellness, perhaps how we feel, our thinking, our emotions? We're gonna do it all, but um, is there a relationship between our nutrition and the way we feel, perhaps in the way we think?
Yes, absolutely. So, a lot of times when we think of food, we just think of eating things that we like and makes us feel happy inside, not really realizing that the food you eat actually creates your body, right? Like your brain is made from the foods you've eaten throughout the years, your nervous system, everything. So it is very, very important that you have good quality food because it can affect your brain health, your gut health. There's a thing called a gut brain. A lot of people aren't aware of the gut brain, but um, what you eat can affect your gut brain. The nerves, the is actually there's a lot of nerves in your digestive system, and depending on what you're eating, that can cause imbalances in your gut brain and can affect your mood and the neurotransmitters in your brain. So it's very, very important. And then also in terms of what you eat. So if you're not, let's say you eat healthy, but you're not eating enough. Well, if you're not getting enough of the nutrients that you need for your body to function, then that too can cause obviously deficiencies and can cause imbalances in your neurochemistry. And if, obviously, that will in turn can affect the way you feel, your mood. It may cause you to have an increased risk of depression, anxiety, fatigue, all those types of things. So
Yeah,
it is very, very important that you consume not only the right food, but enough of those foods so you
absolutely.
get all the nutrients that you need.
Yeah, and I find it very interesting because in my work, being a mental health practitioner and a therapist, I have a lot of my clients that were like, "Oh, I'm really tired, or I'm really sleepy, or I'm just kind of moody, and I don't know why." And sometimes, of course, there's could be so many things that impact somebody's mood or somebody's sleepiness or what have you, but one thing that some people miss, I can look at it from the perspective of, oh no, you're depressed, right? Or oh no, you're just anxious, or no, that's a symptom of depression. But when we look at things from a holistic perspective, when we look at the person's like how you said, their chemistry for their body chemistry, it's what you're eating impacts your mood, impacts your mind. But I think I tend to encourage people to, hey, what are you eating? How often are you eating? Because maybe you're not depressed, right? Maybe it's your diet. And so how can you elaborate a little bit more on what types of food maybe impact, your mood and that can cause mood swings that's not mental health?
Yeah, so going back to the gut brain, so part of your gut brain is the bacteria that you have, right? We have good and bad bacteria in our gut. And those bacteria love to eat the food that we eat, right? And if you want a lot of good bacteria, then you need to eat a lot of the healthy foods. So the foods that are high in fiber, so fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, things like that. And that will cause those bacteria to grow. I like to not that I'm an advocate of telling people to become vegetarian or vegan, but a lot of times when you think of vegans, I always think of like this happy hippie vegan, right? Like they're always in a happy mood.
Yeah.
And that's in part because they're eating all these high fibrous foods, which in turn it improves their mood overall because they're increasing the good bacteria in their gut. But on the flip side, if you're not eating a lot of fiber, then the bad bacteria is going to overaccumulate. These are the bacteria that love sweets, excess amount of fat, and animal products. Again, I'm not advocating to become plant based. I'm an omnivore myself. However, we have to eat fruits and veggies. Like you just
Yeah.
have to, or you're going to have an increase of these bad bacteria in your gut. And these bad bacteria, research has shown that they can actually produce metabolites that can go through your gut brain barrier, and will in turn, like they could produce different neurotransmitters, you
What
know.
does
And
that mean for the audience that doesn't understand? What are neurotransmitters? What is their function in our body and our brains?
so, an easy way to see it, it's kind of like a messenger
Mhm.
to your brain. There's different types of neurotransmitters. So you might have some neurotransmitters that make you happy,
Mhm.
such as serotonin, dopamine. You might have some neurotransmitters that affect, your impulse to actually back to serotonin, dopamine, your impulse to eat.
Mhm.
If you don't have enough of serotonin and dopamine in particular, a lot of times people they want to eat more.
Mhm.
They're more prone to snack throughout the day, not realizing that it's because they have a low amount of the serotonin and dopamine. And so some of these bad bacteria they affect the ability of these neurotransmitters to get to the brain. And then there's also metabolites that we still don't know. I mean, when it comes to gut bacteria, we don't know a lot still. But from what we do know that there's some type of correlation between
Mhm.
them and the fact that it can affect our brain.
Mhm.
We do see another thing that we see is when you do eat a lot of these bad bacteria, not bad bacteria, when you eat a lot of the bad foods that increase the bad bacteria can also create metabolites that increase inflammation in the body.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
and the inflammation that affects your whole body, not just your brain. So, some people who have certain chronic conditions, where I'm not saying that it's the cause of all chronic conditions or anything like that, but it is possible that this increase in inflammation from the foods you eat may be a contributing factor of different conditions that people have, arthritis, cancer,
Mhm.
the list goes on and on. I mean, we've known for years that food has a strong impact on your overall health.
Absolutely.
And that is another one.
Yeah, and I wanna highlight that a little bit too because I think so for people that don't know, Stacie, can you tell people, like, what race are you? How you were raised? Was this always a part of your life? Like, because there might be a misconception here, and I wanna make sure that I clear that up, so
So yeah, so I am biracial. My father is African American and my mother is German. I grew up. Um, I knew some healthy things. My mom obviously taught us to eat vegetables growing up. My dad, he was an army drill sergeant and a ranger, so he cared about exercise and things. But really, through like my whole family, there's a lot of diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, things like that. So it is something like part of the reason why I became a dietitian is to help my family, my friends, this community as in general, because I feel that part of it is just lack of knowledge and understanding that food is actually very powerful, and it can prevent a lot of these chronic conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned like, hey, there's all these chronic conditions in my family and you look at the nutrition side of it and I'm trauma specialized and we learned recently also in the world of trauma that your brain and your nervous system when you are exposed to high amounts of stress, it messes with your gut health. which in turn, gives you heart problems or could lead to autoimmune diseases. And I find that it's very interesting that like food and stress play hand in hand in a majority of a lot of our health. Like, I will be bold enough to say that if you eat right and you take care of your mental health, a lot of other physical health problems may dwindle down, and so I let's talk about that a little bit more. I am Hispanic, and so also minorities, and vegetables are not a thing. It is rice, beans, and meat, right? And so when we talk about rice, beans, and meat, and I went through my own journey when I was around 19, that they were looking at my gut because I was having all these problems, and they were like, "Hey, let's take a look at that." And growing up, like, my mom was a mother of 4 children. My stepfather was deployed a lot, so it's almost like you almost have like a single mom scenario. Don't have all the time in the world to like cook, do all this stuff. We're always on the go, but she cooked what she could, right? But canned foods, processed foods, easy, quickly accessible food. So can you talk about that type of lifestyle and how it impacts us overall?
It will. It will. So when I speak with my clients, one of the first things I ask them in their initial assessment, I ask them about their holistic health, their mental health. Are they stressed? Because if they're stressed, it does make a big difference in terms of how well they feel they can make healthy food, deciding healthy food. And I find that a lot of times when someone has a very high stress load in particular, they'll be the ones that are more prone to getting the fast food or going to the restaurant, or if they're making a meal, it's something that is processed foods, correct? So, um, first and foremost, I find that in those cases, working on the stress is key, because I can tell you, people know they need to eat fruits and veggies. People know they're supposed to be eating these different foods. They know that. But if you can't control your mental health, no matter what I tell you, you're not going to do it, right? So that's first and foremost. So I may refer them out to, um, if they're at UTA, we have an actual counseling center. So I might refer them out to them or another practitioner, depending on what their needs are. It's unfortunate, as a dietitian, I want them to start with me, of course, and work on their health. And in some cases, we can do that, with simple things. But if you are overstressed, you might have a period in time in your life where you go a few weeks and it's good, and you're like, oh, I can do this, and you can start eating healthy, and you'll start incorporating, meal prepping and things like that. But once you hit something else that's very stressful in your life, you're going to go back to the fast food, back to the processed foods. And so really, like, not that I can't help those individuals, I definitely can help them, but it does make it a little bit difficult, And for some people, they feel almost like a failure because, they, they try, but then something happens and then they relapse and they're now eating the fast food again, or whatever the food is, and they feel like they'll never get out of this spiral
Right,
with their eating.
right,
Um, and so I do feel that it's very, very important that people learn to manage their stress. Kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, I do look at what they're currently eating, because sometimes what they're eating is actually the reason why they feel the way they do. One common deficiency that actually is correlated with depression is low vitamin D. And a lot of people are low in vitamin D, especially in the wintertime, because we're not going out and getting sunlight. And the darker complexion you have, the harder it is for your body to make vitamin D. If you're thinking of like Africans, they spent the majority of their time outside in the sun. So they were able to make plenty of vitamin D throughout the day. But now in our Western society, we cover up a lot and we stay indoors.
right.
And so it's very common for our vitamin D levels to be very low. And so if they're not actually taking a supplement for that, that can contribute to some of these, feelings that they are feeling. So that is one of them. And then again, looking at, you know, what they're actually eating, and seeing sometimes, going back to the gut brain, if I can help them eat just more healthy foods, then after a while, that might actually make them feel better. I talked about the happy vegan.
Right,
There
right.
are people who say, like, oh, I actually, I started eating more fruits and vegetables. I feel like I have more energy. I feel a whole lot better. So it really does make a difference. If the cause is caused by, the foods they eat, then, definitely it will make a difference.
Yeah. I think we need to like also let the audience know. Let's talk about being realistic with goals and eating, right? Because if I was raised, like I said, at 19 is when that came to my attention of like, oh, what are you eating, right? And it wasn't like necessarily all the healthiest things, right? Um, when I talked to a dietitian one time, they're like, "Oh, your diet is terrible." And I'm like, "Well, this is what I grew up on. What are you talking about?" And you don't know, right? And so to go from I don't know what's healthy to eat, this is just my habit. And people have that unrealistic mentality is I'm not going to go out ever again to go out to eat. I'm going to meal prep all my meals. I'm going to do all these things, right? And get disappointed every single time. Because let's talk about how long it takes to form a habit, right? It's very short time that it takes to form a habit, but how long it takes to break a habit, and you have to learn how to, man, like, fall back down and pick yourself back up. And I don't think it's about how often you reach that goal, it's how many times can you get back up, and can you elaborate, like, how realistic is it? How often have you seen people, toggle the back and forth? Because when we talk about progression, it's never a straight line. It's never linear. Progression looks like little dots, right? As long as it's consistently increasing. So I could have ate 7 days a week. I can get to ate fast food 7 days a week last week. Let's make it a goal to do 6. That's more realistic than going cold turkey, right? So can you talk about what you have seen in people's journeys when it comes to setting themselves up for failure or success, right? When it comes to breaking that habit, when that's all you know.
Yeah. So I will say it is individual based. There are some people that I've worked with, and they did a complete 180. So just something clicked, and they're like, okay, I need to get my eating together. I need to get my health habits together. And they are able to do that. But that is a small minority of individuals. They're typically the individuals that are like the very anal A type personality. Like
That's
they
me.
it's
That's me.
it's just the way they are. And so they're kind of programmed that way. But the bulk majority of individuals, they actually need, like what you said, they need to take baby steps. It's very hard to just do a 180. It is. I mean, even if I think about my own life, I don't feel my diet was too horrible growing up, but it definitely wasn't perfect. I definitely did not eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and that was something I had to just slowly increase through years, literally years, to get to that point.
Let's
So
highlight that. You
generally,
said years, not days,
yes.
not weeks, not a few months. You said years. So for
And
those
I'm a
people
dietitian.
listening, setting those unrealistic expectations, a dietitian herself said years for herself,
Yes.
and she had somewhat healthy eating habits. So I just wanted to highlight that for a second.
Yes. So generally, whenever I'm working with my clients, that's exactly what I do is I'll look at, like, okay, what are you doing now? Are you getting fast food every day? Or are you, skipping breakfast? That's another common one. Then I would just do something simple. If it's the fast food, exactly what you said before. Let's set a goal. If you eat out 5 days a week, maybe 2 to 3 days might be a little. It's enough to challenge you, but not so much that if you fail, you would be like, oh, I'm such a failure, right?
Right.
So finding that happy medium, because I do want them to see change. If we just do too slow of steps, they can also be discouraged that they're not actually losing weight or seeing improvements in their labs. So it has to be a happy medium.
Mhm.
For most people going cold turkey, if they go cold turkey, a lot of times they might end up relapsing. So that's why, taking, let's bring it down. Let's get you used to that. And for some people, we can't even do that. We might have to, okay, you still have to eat out every day. I understand that. If you're going to eat out every day, eat out once.
Mhm.
And if you're going to eat out once, that meal, you need to be mindful of what you get. And so I
Absolutely.
might say, okay, think of my plate. Do you have fruits and vegetables in this meal? Do you have a protein? Do you have a grain? Or one of the things I like to do for my clients is the one pleasure food rule, which is they're allowed one food that is considered quote unquote junk food.
Mhm.
So that might be a burger, but then everything else they order has to be healthy. So they'll at least still get the satisfaction of that junk food that they're used to eating. And they're going to slowly start getting in those healthy foods so that way their gut bacteria can start growing and they'll start getting more familiar with the healthy foods. And, you know, through time, then they'll be able to do even better and cut back on the number of days they eat out. So it just depends on the individual. I might, like, if it's someone that doesn't eat breakfast, I might say, okay, just have a glass of milk.
Right.
Even if it's something, I mean,
Something
just something,
small.
or fruit,
Grab a fruit.
yeah. Now, is that ideal? No, I would like them to have a balanced meal. I think breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But for some people, that just getting them to eat fruit even 3 days a week is a challenge for them,
Absolutely.
right? So, yeah, we just take those small baby steps. And I also like to plan in advance. So, like, let's say you're a client, I look out like, okay, in the next month, a lot of people, they have holidays coming up. We got to plan for that.
Yes. Right.
Or if there's a stressful time coming up, we got to plan for that. So that way they don't accidentally like mess up on their diet. They're prepared before they hit that stressful time. So
Exactly.
that's some other
If
things.
if you don't if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's usually, the saying that people say. And it sounds cliche, but it's so true. It's so true because you get mentally prepared for it and you know what's coming versus getting slapped in the head, And it's like this happens every year. We have these holidays every year, right? It shouldn't be a surprise, but we do. And so talking about like holidays and talking about like the habits of eating out, um can you elaborate on cravings? Because a lot of the time people are just like, oh no, I'm just craving sugar. So I'm going to get that cookie or that sweets, right? Or in my case, I'm a savory person. Like I need salt. So I'm going to go buy some fries, right? Or like some chips. So can you talk about a little bit about cravings, where they come from, and like what are some like healthy alternatives when somebody gets a craving on their journey to nutritional wellness?
So your taste buds are pretty much the taste buds you have are based off of the foods you eat. So if you eat a lot of sweets, you're going to want a lot of sweets. Babies, for example, they're drinking milk. Milk is sweet. And then once you start introducing food to them, a lot of times in the beginning they spit it out because they don't have the taste buds for that,
Right.
right? Um, the same thing if we're talking about salty food, savory food, whatever types of foods that you like, the more you eat those foods, you get more taste buds according to those types of foods. So obviously you're going to crave those foods more because that's what, you have the most of those taste buds. In order to improve your taste buds, you kind of have to force yourself to eat other foods. So going back to the baby analogy, the baby spits out the food, you're not going to be like, oh, the baby doesn't like this. I'm not going to feed them vegetables ever again.
Mhm.
No, they need vegetables, and you will
Right.
still give them the food, and eventually they start actually eating it and they start actually liking it, right? And it's the same for us because you'll start developing those taste buds. I get a lot of people in, particularly in the African American community, that likes a lot of salty foods. And when there's foods that it, by their definition, doesn't have as much salt, they'll say, "This is not seasoned."
Yeah, it doesn't have flavor. That was me.
Yeah,
That was me. Hispanics, ton of ton of savory stuff. Like I was like, this is not good. Like no,
yeah,
I don't like it.
yeah. It seems like there's no flavor, but if you apply that same principle, if you just force yourself to eat less salt and you just eat it bland, after a while you'll actually taste the flavors in the food. Like there's definitely flavors in the food. It's just all you're used to is the salt flavor.
Correct. And
Yeah.
like you said, a lot of minority households, that's what we're exposed to. Like we over season everything, I think, right? To the point where like I would go to a friend's house maybe to eat something and I'm like, this ain't it. This ain't it. And it was very hard for me. Like my journey took like I think from 19, I think I got a hold of eating healthy like 2 years ago, maybe if that, right? So maybe a whole 10 years ish of like learning what to eat that was good for me. But it wasn't like, hey, like you, I love that you use the baby analogy because it's like I have to learn to basically teach myself as if I was a baby all over again about eating right. That's not including like our mental habits, not including our physical habits, which also affects, the whole body and the whole system. But it takes a lot of time, especially when you're used to specific flavors. And I I'm gonna speak for I think a lot of people think this that healthy equals nasty.
Yeah. And if you get used to, that's what I say, like if you get used to eating those foods, like I honestly like eating fast food, like people get excited to go to Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and all these places. I hate going there because I don't eat those foods. Like it's literally like because I have to eat it. Like I can taste the grease. I can taste like I feel
Oh
so
my gosh, I
heavy.
thought I was the only one. My
Like I
husband and I
can't.
literally talked about that the other day. Like we went, I didn't have time to cook, and we bought some fast food. And we were both looking at each other, even my children, because I cook a lot of our meals now. I don't buy a lot of processed stuff. They look at me like I did something wrong when I give them some seriously. And I'm like, it just doesn't taste the same because when you learn to cook your meals and cook healthy does not mean nasty because I can throw down and my food is banging, okay? My husband will tell you that. But I had to learn to replace things here and there, right? And like slowly take away the food that was not healthy, right? And incorporate slowly the other things. And now I don't even want like I can't even drink juice, like I can't drink soda, because the majority of what I drink is water. Like I have like my little gallon here, right? But I'm like, this is too sugary. I can taste the sugar. And you're right. Like your taste buds adapt. And it's like, oh, I used to drink this all the time, or I used to eat this all the time, and your body feels it afterward. Then I'm like, my stomach starts hurting, or I feel, and I'm like, wow. One, the body is amazing because it adapts. It adapted to the unhealthy for so long. And then it adapts to the healthy. And then when you introduce unhealthy again, it's like, I don't like this. We were not meant to be here. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I will say so for some people it is still hard because you know, if you're stressed, if you are in a hurry, you just want to feel good at the end of the day. Like you just want to eat something good. So there are ways that you can slowly get into this healthy eating. So you talked about substituting. That is a great thing to do. Healthy eating does not have to be nasty. I still eat pizza and hamburgers and
Yep,
tacos on the regular. I just make a healthy version of them.
correct.
So yeah, a lot of those foods that you eat, you can still have them in a healthier way. You know, pizza is my favorite food. If I had a choice between the pizza I make and going to, you know, Pizza Hut or Papa John's, I actually prefer my pizza because when I make my pizza, I don't go overboard with the cheese. I don't go overboard with the sausage. I put a ton of vegetables on there,
Yes.
and the crust is not like extra thick and greasy.
Yes.
And for some people, hearing me say that, you might be thinking like, "Oh, that sounds like a very boring pizza." But when you get used to eating it, you actually will start to crave it more. And part of the process is just being content with something that might not. So if you're used to eating Papa John's pizza, right? Eating your own pizza made with a pita bread or, some type of flat bread, obviously it's not going to taste like that Papa John's. But it should at least make you feel like you ate pizza. Like you should feel content enough, like, okay, this was good. I had pizza, I'm good, you know. And if you do that long enough, if you substitute it long enough, eventually you're going to prefer the healthier pizza. The same with, any other types of foods. It may not taste the same. It may not be, you know, in your eyes in the beginning good, but it's good enough. So you
Absolutely.
just you just have to get used to it, and then eventually you're going to prefer that over the other foods.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Something that I found in my own journey. So when I was a caseworker, I was always on the road, right? Like always on the go, and it was so hard. And I would try to meal prep on Sundays, and I would have only so many days. But then I didn't have access to a microwave, so my food would either go bad. And so I'm like, dang it, like I have to eat out, right? And that established the habit. When I stopped working there, I still got used to the eating out so often, right? And then what happened was like, okay, I'm gonna make the same food, but I'll do it at home. So if I'm craving that hamburger or whatever, right? Or I'm just gonna make it because what people don't realize, that small change of, you know what, I'm making it versus buying it makes a big difference. Because let's talk about preservatives. Let's talk about all the stuff that's in the foods that's in the fast food versus when you buy it and make it at home. That would make a world of a difference. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you have control over the ingredients.
Absolutely.
You don't know when you're eating at a restaurant, even if you order a salad at a restaurant, you don't know what they're putting on there. You don't know, like, they'll tell you, like, oh, it's this many calories, but you don't know for sure if it is that many calories because they have different people making it each day. They could put one day, one person puts 4 tablespoons of salad dressing. The next day, the person put maybe 2 tablespoons. So it's not going to even be the exact same every time. A lot of the equipment that they're cooking the food on is used for multiple things. So if you have, like, for instance, grilled chicken,
Hmm.
they're probably also using the same grill that they use for their greasy hamburgers. So you're going to get some of that fat on your grilled chicken.
Yeah.
A lot of times they put extra fat and butter on top of your meat so it looks shiny.
Hmm.
But when you're at home, a lot of times people don't do that. That's still an extra 100, 200 calories that you are eating, right? So it's always better for you to make the food at home because you can control what you're using, what ingredients, how much you're using, and you can actually be aware, like, how much are you actually eating?
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to add in 100 and 200 calories of just fats alone. Like that butter on top of your steak, on top of the chicken that you don't even know is there, easily adds so many extra calories.
Right.
And those calories matter if you're trying to lose weight or maintain your weight.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about those type of lifestyles too. The single moms, like they're busy and it's unfortunate. It's a very to go and you're in constant stress all the time because if you're not working, it's children. If you don't have barely have time for self-care, you barely have time to even think, I don't want to cook. So what do you have, for people in situations that, their circumstances may not allow them a lot of time to meal prep or to cook every day because they just don't have the time.
I would actually challenge that notion that they don't have time.
Okay.
A lot of people, they do have the time. It's just how are they managing their time? If you know at the end of the day, each day, you're exhausted, and the last thing you want to do is cook, then you need to be prepared that that's going to be the case. I have to do that for myself. If I know I have a long work day and I'm going to get home late, I know I'm going to be too tired to cook, right? So I prep in advance. So I recommend you look at your week in general. You look and you see, okay, on this day, I get home at 6. At this day, I'll get home at 4 or 5. I have to take the kids to practice on this day, so we're going to get home at 9, or, whatever the case may be. You look at your week and you look at when do you have time to cook. So if you know that you're going to have a day that you're going to get home earlier, then I would be prepared to cook for that day. Now, I will say for most people, right when you get home from work, you're going to be exhausted because you just worked all day. That is everyone. You're exhausted. If you're someone that commutes, I'm in the DFW area, commuting an hour is normal. When you
Tough.
get home, you're going to be exhausted.
Right.
So you need to plan for that. Like, okay, I need to give myself at least 30 minutes to recover for commuting that long or for the work day, whatever the case may be, and you just relax. You tell your kids this is quiet time. You have some type of structure in your house, so that way you feel like you have energy and you can start cooking.
Absolutely. It's the darn if you do, darn if you don't, right? Like I'm tired, but you're also eating things that make you tired, right? And I don't have the time because you're tired, right? And so that's a small thing. And I also you touched on kids, and I would like to like expand a little bit on that, just for the audience that do have children, right? And I find it hard. I have a 2-year old, and my 2-year old cooks with me. It's not necessarily the most productive thing, right? He doesn't know what he's doing, but, like, I teach him, I'm like, give him a little butter knife, a fake one, and I'm like, "Okay, here, cut the pepper or cut this," and he's like, "Oh, I wanna cook with you, help me stir." So, it's even a time where you can engage your family and spend time together as a family, maybe make a meal together, and especially if you have older kids, instead of being the one that's fully responsible for that, share that responsibility with your children. It's important skill for kids to learn. This is what it takes for you to take care of yourself when you're older, to be healthy and involve them in that process. And it could even be a part, like you said, a routine that, what, as a family together, when we get home, everybody's tired. But you know what? If we all pitch in, instead of waiting an hour and a half because mom's tired and has to do everything herself, it's going to take us 30 minutes because so and so can do this or so and so can do that. And we spend time together as family, put some music on, sing together, play together. Instead of making it a chore, right? Changing the perspective to make it something engaging and fun that you can do together as a family.
And I think too it's important to teach children that. Nowadays, it's the thing to go, let's go get chicken nuggets. Let's go to McDonald's, let's go to Chick-fil-A. And I'm getting very saddened because I've seen a huge increase of young people with diabetes and heart disease,
Yes.
high blood pressure. It's very like being busy is no excuse at this point because literally the kids are now getting chronic conditions. Like
Your
you
life
have
depends on it.
to, yes, you just have to. You can't. I tell people this. I'm like, you have to make health a priority. Like you can't just be like, oh well, I have this, I have this, I have this. Your body doesn't know the difference. Your body doesn't
Absolutely.
know that you have all these obligations that you have to do. It just knows that you're feeding it fried food every day. And so
Absolutely.
it's not going to be like, oh, she's very busy, so let's not turn this into clogged arteries. It's not going to do that.
Yep.
You,
Yep.
you have to just do what you have
You
to
know,
do.
absolutely, and going with the model of the company, right? Like it's mind, body, soul, and spirit. And I like to teach people each of them operate separately from each other. And the goal is to get them integrated. Your body, like you said, does not know the difference between like I'm doing this so I need to make up for it. No, your body just knows I need to move, I need to work, I need to function, I need to operate. And when I'm not being nourished, whether it's mentally, right, emotionally or physically, I am going to give you problems because I am not being taken care of. And so yes, it's a big thing. Like it's a big deal. It's not about losing weight. I really like to explain that when we talk about health, it's not about being skinny. It's not about losing weight. It's not body shaming. It's not about anything, but there are real life repercussions for not taking care of your physical health through nutrition. And yes, you get to lose weight along the process, maybe if you don't have other health conditions, right? Like there are many different reasons why somebody may keep on the weight. And for those who don't know, stress will keep the weight on you because like you talked about with the gut health, it does not get to, your body does not get to regulate the way it needs to. It does not get the right hormones that it needs to be able to lose weight, so your body will hold on to all the fat and if you're stressed. So like you said, making your health a priority is so important, and it's not just about mental health. Yes, I'm mental health, but I am about the whole body, the whole function, including nutrition and the body. That's the body. That's how it responds. That's how it operates. So yeah, your life does depend on your health. It does.
One thing I like to ask my clients is to prioritize, like, tell me what your priorities are and see where health is on that list. Sometimes they'll say health is up here, like it's a very high priority, but they don't live it as though it's up there. And then there's some people that are honest and the health is down here, and they'll
Hmm.
have their work or if they're in school, and that might be more important to them, and that's fine. But if that is more important to you, then you have to understand that you will always have an excuse. You'll always have, oh, I always have this assignment I need to do. I have to stay late and do this for work. I always have, you'll always have an excuse not to do what you need to do for your health.
Yes. But and here's the thing too, and I tell my clients too, like work will always be there. You're replaceable. Let's be honest, right? School will always be there. But if you're not here to work, if you're not here to go to school, there's only one you. Literally. And think about all the people that are affected that are surrounding you. And for those that do have children, what habits are you teaching your kids? Are you giving them the gift of health or are you giving them the gift of stress? I have like a lot of parents like, I don't understand why my kid is depressed or acting this way or acting that way. But like a lot of things are we have the privilege of teaching our children and our families like this is what health looks like. And if my kids see me prioritizing that, they get to see, oh, you know what, this matters. And no matter how busy I get with being a business owner or a therapist or anything like that, I have boundaries because I have the tendency to dive into work and completely get lost. Like I am super hyper focused and it's really bad. Like I have to have my husband hold me accountable. But I make it a deal. You know what? I'm gonna turn off my computer during my lunch. I work from home, I work for myself. So this is hard, right? So I turn off my computer, I take off my phone, and I say, you know what? My lunch breaks are for working out at least 3 to 4 days a week. So I'm gonna work out during my lunch break. No excuses. There will always be work to do, right? But my children only have one mom, right? And my parents only have one of me. They have plenty of kids, but one of me. But we're talking about priorities. It's like it's again, darned if you do, darned if you don't, because you have to make time for yourself and for your health because if you're not here, you cannot be effective if you're not taking care of your body. You're not functioning to you will be better at work if you take care of your health. You will be a better spouse if you take care of your health. You will be a better parent if you take care of your health. This is what people don't understand.
Yeah, I think that there's a big misunderstanding with taking care of your health and time. I think
Yes.
people think that, like, oh, for me to be healthy, I'm going to lose all this time. I have to cook for so many hours during the week. I have to exercise for so many hours during the week. But just like what you said, like, really, you become more effective because you're not like moping around, and you have more energy. You feel more invigorated. You know, priorities does not mean time spent necessarily.
Yes.
It just means you make sure, okay, every day I'm going to do this. That's all that it means. It could be 5 minutes.
Correct. Absolutely. And like you said, that one substitute, like instead of eating fries, right? I'm gonna choose to Sweet potato fries? I didn't know they were a thing, but I love them so much instead of regular fries. And I'll make them at home. And, let's talk about, like, a side. I have made it a habit to slowly, you know what? I'm gonna eat at least one fruit or one vegetable with every meal. And so whether it's adding the peppers, right, to that pasta or whatever, or that pizza, or whether it's, adding that one fruit to your breakfast, right? It makes a world of a difference because, like you said, like it impacts like overall like the nutrition. And so if there's anything that you can have the audience take away from today, what would it be?
Be kind to yourself and just start with what you feel that you can start with now. If it is just literally cutting back on things that you know you're doing too much of, then do that. If it means just looking at your life in general, and maybe you're not working on food yet, but you're learning to manage your stress, do that. Just find one thing. Everyone knows what they need to work on. They know, and just take baby steps towards that. And like I said earlier, I mean, health is a journey. It takes time. And
Yes.
so just be kind to yourself. And instead of being impatient, a lot of times people become very impatient. They want to get to their final destination. We're a very microwave, like instant,
Yes.
you know, society. Enjoy the process,
Yes.
and just look long term. So that way, you're not so hard on yourself and you don't achieve this goal like in a week
Yes.
or two or however.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I see it is like fall in love with the journey,
Yes.
not the results. If you fall in love with the journey, the results will come.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Stacie. I think I found this to be very informative for our audience. And I love how you were open and honest even about your own journey. And we just really appreciate you taking your time out to educate us on nutrition and health.
Well, thank you for having me. I love to talk about nutrition, so anytime.